Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast, presented by BetMGM, Tuesday, April 2nd. I'm your host today, Brendan Glasheen, joined by Sean Zerillo and Anthony DeBundo for Tuesday Best Bets. You can hear us every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday mornings during the regular season. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, and also find us on the Action Network YouTube page. We greatly appreciate 5-star ratings and reviews. Anything you got, we'll take it. Much appreciated. Sean Zerillo's got his opening pitch column up right now for this week, for Tuesday, that is. And DeBundo is here for some dingers, teasing the dingers. We'll do dingers at the end of the show. Same rundown as normal, though. We'll do best bets. We'll find out if we're going to fade the public today. We're looking at the Mets and the Tigers. And then we'll target underdogs and then give out some final bets. Let's open with a general discussion. We're now a full 5 or 6 days into the season now, not including Korea, but looking at the first couple days here. Full game overs hitting at a 66% clip. First 5 overs at 56%. DeBundo, I'll let you lead things off here. You want to comment on just the run environment in the first week of the season so far?
Yeah, so it's not the baseballs. We looked at how much balls are carrying. You look at the drag on StatCast, how much the ball is moving through the air. And you can see that the balls aren't really any different than they were last year. So I think that's important to note. We had hypothesized last week, and it's always fun on opening day when you watch balls fly out of the park and you're like, oh, the balls look juiced this year. The data hasn't really backed that up. I mean, the batting average on balls in play is about the same. Home run rates are about the same. Fly ball home run rates are in line with normal. If you compare xWOBA to actual WOBA, all of the StatCast metrics line up with the fact that the balls are the same, but the overs are hitting, like you said, F5 overs. Sean tweeted it last night, hitting 55%. So not unreasonable, but overs hitting, full game overs hitting at an unreasonable number. And it all comes down to the bullpens in baseball. Right now, the bullpen strikeout rate is lower than it's been since 2015. Bullpen ERA is as high as it's been as long as we have the data right now, through 5 days. And the primary reason, walks are also way up. So it's a skill issue, right? We're not looking at batting average on balls in play variance. We're looking at relief pitchers that come in are throwing fewer strikes. They're getting fewer whiffs, fewer swings and misses. And as a result, there's more runners on base and more damage being done when runners are on base. So the average right now, if you compare to past seasons, we were trying to hypothesize what is the cause of this. I don't know the honest answer, but I do know that the pitch clock did change again this year, where they cut 2 seconds off of every pitcher with runners on base. And that's where you're seeing the biggest difference. The strand rate this year is below 70%. And it's a big enough sample now. I mean, it's only 5 days, but it's the whole league. It's a big enough sample now that it makes you wonder if maybe there is an adjustment period again to the pitch clock getting shortened with runners on base. And you're seeing pitchers make high stress pitches on a quicker clock, thus either not throwing strikes, or when they do throw strikes, leaving pitches over the middle. Like, it's affecting command, because you can look at bullpen stuff plus league wide, bullpen fastball velocity. It's the same. Fastball velocity is up, stuff plus the same. But again, if more pitchers are thrown in the middle of the plate or not throwing strikes at all, we've seen so many games, even the good bullpens, Philly, Houston, the Giants, all getting just annihilated the first week of the season. And it's unusual and strange and interesting because nobody can hold leads, even the best relievers. And there are some injuries to some top end guys across the league. You look at like Milwaukee, Toronto, Seattle, even Philly's got a couple guys down. But this is like crazy to me that we're seeing all of this run scoring happen after the 5th inning when starters come out of the game. When starters are pitching, there's a little bit more, success with runners on base against the starters, but against the relievers, the numbers are through the roof. So it's just interesting. And, I wonder if there's an adjustment period. I know Sean talked about how he adjusted the run environment in his numbers. It's something to monitor as overs continue to hit at a crazy clip.
Anything to add, Sean?
So I think it was also just kind of the flow of like how the season started. You're in the back end of the rotations by games 4 and 5. And I think the bullpens were just exhausted after going through the first 3 starters. And there was just sort of this cumulative effect where, look at the Reds-Phillies game yesterday. I mean, the Phillies ran out of pitchers, by the time extra innings rolled around, I'm like, I think I'm going to lose this under 9. And ultimately it pushed, and that was awful. But at the same time, you could see it coming the whole way. By the time we got to 2-2, the Phillies are getting to their bullpen, and these guys have pitched several days. The Marlins yesterday as well. The Marlins I talked about in my article, and we'll get to them later again, but the Marlins had used all of their key relievers 3 times in 5 days, and they had to go to them again yesterday, and they ended up blowing the game. They've blown several games for them already this season. So I think starters not giving their teams length early. These bullpens came in, got blown up. It happened again. And then by the time you got to day 3 of the season, by the time you got to the back end of the rotation and had less effective starters going, you also had bullpens that were exhausted. So I think a lot of these teams just need a day off, need to reset their pitching staffs. But yeah, the only thing different really is the fact that this pitch clock is shortened to 18 seconds with runners on base. That would seem to impact relievers who are more often coming in with runners on base than they are coming in with clean innings behind them at the start of an inning. And also, MLB lowered the number of, first off, we have the pitch clock stuff last year, right? And all the increase in pitching injuries that we had. And we don't really know the long-term effects of what this is going to do to the arms around baseball, but it seemed to increase injuries. And then on top of that, MLB shortened the number of pitchers that you're allowed to have on your roster from 14 to 13. I believe it was last season. Might have been this year, but I'm pretty sure this happened in 2023. And that just limits the number of guys who you have available at any one time to go to. So really seems like MLB is doing everything in its power to put more stress on these pitchers' arms. And I think, once you go through the top of your rotation, you don't get linked from the guys because they're coming off a spring or they get roughed up a little bit. And then your bullpen's already exhausted for the back end of the rotation. Yeah, we've seen a lot more games going over late than going over early. There's about a 10% difference there relative to betting odds. So I would expect this to normalize, but as Jim and I talked about yesterday, keep an eye on that strain rate, the left on base percentage, which is typically around 72%. It's about 4% lower than normal. And if that stabilizes there over the remainder of the month, I'd be pretty concerned and pretty confident that that's where it's going to go the remainder of the season.
When the right now, 69%. The lowest on record from Fangraphs, 1994, was 71%. That wasn't even a full season. It's 2000, 71.3. So a full 2.2%. That's worth 5% to the total every game, minimum. I mean, it's a lot, and it's a huge swing. And you're seeing this, like I said, despite the highest fastball velocity for relief pitchers in the history of the sport.
15 seconds for the pitchers still when the bases are empty. That rule remained the same, but yes, the shift from 20 to 18. Any thought that the possibility of, we talked about stolen bases quite a bit in the preseason pods. Is there any direct correlation there, Dabundo, you think, with stolen bases possibly being up? Again, not enough of a sample size to know if that's going to be a factor, but we have a hunch that stolen bases will be up. Is that impacting relievers coming in with guys on and getting timing right, high leverage situations?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be playing a factor. Teams being more aggressive on the bases, having higher success rates with stealing, turning walks into doubles is a huge difference in terms of run probability. Having a runner on first with no outs versus second with no outs.
Sure.
And when you have this command issue, you introduce wild pitches to be a bigger issue. You'd have to really dig in to see like how much that's played a role. I haven't looked at stolen bases yet to see like how reasonably up they are compared to even last season when the rule changes first happened. But certainly, yeah. I mean, the walk turning into a double is I think the biggest thing for relievers, because a lot of them are slow to the plate because they want to max their stuff, and they don't really care about runners because they expect to just strike everybody out. But like I said, if you're striking out fewer batters, and you're not worried about the running game, and the rules are designed to help runners steal, then you're introducing a lot more risk.
More offense is what it seems that baseball wants. They want offense to go up, and I like how you led with your analysis. It's not the baseballs; it's these run environments that have been created with relievers. So we'll see if that continues to be a thing. I'm reading here from Major League Baseball. The average delivery for pitchers was at 7.3 seconds remaining for the 20-second timer. So whatever that number is adjusted with 18 seconds, that's another thing too. You got to speed it up and get rid of the baseball.
Well, there's one other thing they changed this year, which is that when there's like a foul ball, a dead ball situation,
yep,
they start the clock when the pitcher gets the ball back, not when the pitcher gets on the mound. And you saw some pitchers would cheat and not get the ball back in time, or they would wait. to get on the mound to restart that clock after like a foul ball.
Yeah.
So, you're working these deep counts. Guy keeps fouling him off, and the pitcher's starting to wear on this batter, and you're not able to steal those extra 5 seconds, and you have to make kind of like hurried pitches. You saw that like even in the Phillies game with yesterday, like Brogdon was clearly up against the clock late there and like almost didn't want to throw the pitch and had to, and then India smacks a grand slam. So it was a Steer smacked a grand slam. So it's anecdotal, but you can watch it and see it affect guys, and it's like a snowball effect in a way.
Yeah, you could see it with Brogdon. He was almost like, I don't want to throw the ball yet. Like you could see it in his body language of like, I'm not ready to pitch this ball yet. And
embarrassing.
That grand slam was inevitable. And the ball going off of TJ Antone's glove in the bottom of the 10th inning to get the 9th run home, just like, everything that could have happened to get that total onto 9 did. And that just seems like the way baseball has been going this season. So hopefully the unders start hitting a little bit more at some point, but I've adjusted my run environment up ever so slightly just because of how poorly these bullpens are doing. And, we've been betting a nice mix of overs and unders this season. So fortunately still on the right side of the ledger.
There was a moment yesterday too in the rain delayed game of White Sox and Braves that ended up going pushed to 9, or if you had 8.5, that was in Zerillo. I saw your tweet about that. Good info for people to understand when you go into a situation like that, when you bet an over, what you're getting yourself into. And then Austin Riley hits a 3-run shot after a 45-minute rain delay.
Yeah, and somebody had a really good tweet to me. Like, if you're very confident that a game is going to get rained out in the late innings, it's almost like a free roll on the over. If you're betting it at certain books, if you're betting it at the books that are going to cash the bet, if it's unequivocally determined that it went over the total, it's almost like a free roll. So just worth considering at the books that will grade it that way. Very interesting situation, but there were a lot of people who ultimately pushed on Braves -1.5 bets, or who pushed on player props, and that's just like excruciating considering how that game played out. So
they do not do that for live bets. I had a friend who like thought he was sharp and tried to live bet an under in like a game that was very clearly about to get rain out, and then there was like a 3-hour rain delay, but they came back and finished the game, and then it went over, and he was mad, and I told him even like, you're not going to get paid out on a live under when the skies are about to open on the stadium. So you have to do it pregame, but yes, certainly true.
Good note. But I more so brought that game up because there was a pitch clock situation where it's a staring match between the pitcher and the hitter. I forget who was at the plate and who was on the mound. It was definitely a reliever at this point. Because the Braves had led 6-0, and it's a staring match with the pitcher and the hitter because the pitcher's like, I don't want to throw yet. I hope he calls time. And the hitter ended up calling time right when the pitch clock was about to hit 0. So to your point, not wanting to throw the ball yet is what I thought the same exact thing in certain spots. So, all right, there's your run environment.
There was a Brewers pitcher too who dropped the ball and had to pick it up and like quick pitch it because there was no time left. There's been some funny instances with the pitch clock already this season. So yeah, it's a bizarre rule, and I think pitchers are still adjusting to it even 2 years in.
Okay, with all that in mind, let's dive into the slate. 14 games on this Tuesday. First one starts at 4 in the afternoon. Best bet for today, Sean Zerillo.
Yeah, let's go with the afternoon game. Twins and Brewers under 8.5. Both of these teams did get a day of rest yesterday, so these bullpens should be fully rested, and I like both of these bullpens. I project 6 different relievers in Milwaukee's bullpen for a sub-4 FIP. I mean, we talked yesterday about teams who I don't have a single reliever projected for sub-4. Brewers might have the best bullpen in baseball. Twins have 3 relievers projected for a sub-4 FIP, so I do give the bullpen advantage to Milwaukee. Yohan Duran still currently working his way back for an oblique injury for them. Louis Varland, his velo was up at the end of last season, a couple ticks. He was hitting triple digits in shorter stints. And I like Jacob Junis. Junis had a sub-4 indicators across the board last year. 3.75 expected ERA, 3.66 expected FIP, 3.3 SIERA. I think he's a guy who the Brewers are going to optimize and stretch out. And Milwaukee is as good at pitching development as any team in the game. So I like Junis to be effective for 5 innings here. He'll turn it over to this elite Brewers bullpen. I like Varland to be effective for 5 innings here. I'll turn it over to the Twins bullpen. I give Milwaukee the bullpen advantage, so I projected them closer to -120. If you can get -110 or better on Milwaukee, I'm fine with that. But I really like the under in this matchup, the under 8.5. Would bet that to -108. Projected this total closer to 8 inside in Milwaukee with two good bullpens, fresh and ready to go.
Okay, that one starts just after 4 Eastern today, the first game of the day. DeBundo also targeting a total for a best bet.
Yeah, I'm going to go over 9, minus 105 in Yankees, Diamondbacks. Major question marks about both starters here. Didn't think either of them pitched particularly well in their opening outing. And I'm concerned especially about Zach Gallen. We saw a ton of stuff plus loss for him after a not great spring. Cortez, his cutter, which is generally his best pitch, did not grade out well in his opening start. He was constantly digging himself out of trouble, and he got out of it a bunch and kind of grinded his way through that outing against Houston, but it was not particularly pretty. And I am intrigued by Arizona playing differently this year because I think that the ball seems to be flying further in Arizona. That's the one part to me that has noticeably been different when you compare, anecdotal evidence, watching Arizona hit. Yes, they played the Rockies the first week of the season. That always helps a pitch, an offense look better. But Gallen himself, you look at the metrics, only one other pitcher had a worse stuff plus drop from their last year's numbers to their opening numbers. His numbers were down in spring, 2 ticks on the breaking ball, a tick on the fastball. I have major question marks about both guys and how ready and healthy they are right now. I know Zerillo teased this in his opening pitch as well. We're kind of in agreement on this. I think this is a prime over.
Yeah, the roof was closed last night as well, and that game finished lower scoring. It'll be open for the next 2 days. The Diamondbacks are great. They have literally a website on their team page about their roof and whether it will be open in advance. The Astros and the Rangers kind of leave it up to us to guess on a daily basis, but the Diamondbacks are very clear when that roof will be open or closed. It will be open for the next couple of games of the series, should increase the run scoring environment. Gallen's velo was down. Anthony talked about the stuff plus. The velocity was down 2 miles an hour, and it was lower than his lowest mark for any individual game last season, which is very concerning. The spring numbers weren't great. His strikeout minus walk rate dipped by 6% in the second half of last season. It was even lower in the playoffs last season. So I think there's increasing evidence that Zach Gallen's arm is a bit fatigued, if not potentially injured, and that he's hiding something. So I also like the over here. And then I might like it again on Wednesday. I don't know where I'm going to project it out yet, but that roof will be open again. And I think there is a difference between the roof open and closed in Arizona.
243 innings last year. That's a number you just don't ever see anymore in the modern game. And he was very clearly out of gas in the playoffs. And we talked about this on opening day on the pod where we said not too sure about Gallen. I guess I'll just say it now. I also bet it's under 5.5 strikeouts at plus 106. I think that's high. He really struggled to get strikeouts, to get swings and misses against a Rockies lineup that has been swinging at everything and missing everything in every other game they've played this season, except the time that they faced Gallen on opening day. And there was some conversations about, they had that 14-run inning or 13-run inning where he sat for a long time, but his numbers before that weren't good either. He was not getting the whiffs, and I think it's a major problem for him against the Yankees lineup that has shown increased plate discipline. Not just Juan Soto, but generally speaking, has not been chasing as much as past teams.
Yeah, they're taking really nice at bats. Even the way they were working counts against Nelson yesterday, they're a pretty scary offense right now to go against. Have the Diamondbacks in that matchup, and I'm watching Nelson struggle through these innings, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just a matter of time before this offense explodes. So probably lucky to get out of there with the Yankees only scoring 5 runs, but their offense just seems to have a very disciplined approach right now. I might even, I like the under on Gallen strikeouts with you. I might join you on that. Might even consider the over on walks for him as well. I know he's a command guy, but he might be nibbling a little bit here against this Yankees lineup, and they've been very patient taking pitches.
Let's find out if we're going to fade the public today. We've identified the Mets and the Tigers game. 64% of the bets, 86% of the cash, according to our Action Pro tool, have the money coming in on the Mets over the Tigers. And it appears, based on the Action app as well, sharp money coming in on the Mets. Zerillo, are we with the people on New York, or is there something here possibly on Detroit?
No, I'm on the Mets. Projected them at minus 144 in either half. I would bet them up to minus 133. That said, I do think Casey Mize is probably underprojected and could be a breakout arm this season. It's weird to say that a former number 1 overall pick would be a breakout arm, but this guy's dealt with Tommy John surgery. Even when he came up and pitched, he didn't look all that affected, but he seems to have revamped his pitch mix after his Tommy John surgery, now going with more of a 4-seam slider splitter mix. And I think he may very much, not may outpitch his projections. I think he's going to outpitch his projections. The low FIP projection for him is 456, the high is 489. I think he's going to be substantially better than that. But that said, I still project the Mets as a favorite here, and I still need to use, some sort of regress projection to those previous levels. I think the biggest difference between these teams so far this season, Mets are hitting 176 with runners in scoring position. The Tigers are hitting 375. That's going to even out at some point. The Mets offense has been inept. They're just not cashing in on their opportunities. There's too many talented players in this offense to get held to 1 or 0 runs in 3 of their 4 games to start the season. So the run should come eventually. I think Mize could be, better than the projections indicate, but still like the Mets in this matchup. It's set up to minus 144 in other half.
DeBundo, how about you? You with the people on the Mets in Zerillo?
Yeah, no opinion on the side or the total for me, but I think the Mize strikeouts are low. We talked about this. Zerillo just mentioned Mize beating his projections. So he's had a 19% strikeout rate pretty much his entire short major league career, where he's been very up and down, battled with injuries. His stuff plus numbers in the past years were not as impressive, but in the spring he popped. And I think when you consider that plus what we know about his pedigree as a prospect in the past, I think there's room to believe that he could have some upside this year now that he's fully healthy. Pitched well in the spring, 109 stuff plus in the spring, better than the below average stuff he showed in the past stints. And so I think his strikeout numbers are a little deflated. If you just give him like a 22% strikeout rate, this number is way low. He just has to go through the order twice to have a pretty good value on the over. So, the Mets, yes, they're probably not going to hit 175 all year with runners in scoring position. I think the number's about right on the side. Hauser is somebody that's always confounded me, and I'm kind of interested to see what he looks like in this park, where his problems get a little mitigated. But I like Mize over, but I'm waiting to see if we're going to actually get good weather here, because I want to have like at least a 2-hour window of good baseball before they potentially have like a, if like it's going to rain at 8:30, I don't want any part of the Mize overs because he might only pitch 3 or 4 innings.
Okay, very good. That's a 7:10 first pitch tonight, Tigers and Mets.
I would say 50-50 they play, just based on what I'm seeing in Philly personally. But
okay, something to keep an eye on. We just hit on the weather and how that works with when you bet. When you, at least in this case, you're not bet. Well, you are betting an over. You're betting an over in strikeouts. How does that work?
Yamamoto on Saturday, the first rain delay in Dodger Stadium in 9 years, and he only pitched 5 innings as a result, and he didn't go over. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
The strikeout totals get weird. Some books, again, if it's been unequivocally determined, that's the phrasing that some books will use. So if the starter's out of the game, they will grade the prop. But other books will grade all props as pushes if the games don't finish, even if the players have been removed from the game. Again, on my tweet yesterday, I saw people saying I had Morton under K's, and it still graded as a push, even though he had been out of the game for several innings. So yeah, that's a book by book issue. But generally speaking, most books will refund all props and void all prop bets if the game does not go 9 innings.
All right. Let's take a look. Again, we got a 14-game slate. Underdog you might like for today, Zerillo?
None. Maybe the Oakland A's. That's the only one. It's pretty rare for me to come on here.
I was going to say, wow.
To wake up any day and not have an underdog bet. In fact, I don't think I've ever come on a Payoff podcast and said, there's no underdogs I like today, but there's no underdogs I like today. Maybe the A's. I don't want to bet on the A's. I mean, this team is... Never mind the fact that they look like
holy crap
fielding. They're so bad defensively. Brendan, I don't know if you watched the game last night, but the Red Sox won 9-0. How many of those runs were from the A's defense? 4 or 5?
There were 5 errors, I think, in the first 3 innings of the game.
Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
They're literally throwing the ball around the infield, and in the Oakland Coliseum, when you miss the first baseman, it's 2 bases. It's not 1 base like it is at any other park. There's no rebound. That ball just goes forever. And you can get an insight. You could get a Little League home run easily if the shortstop throws it over the first baseman's head. So Nick Allen's supposed to be a good defender. I believe he's leading the majors in errors this season. The A's project as a below average defensive, or not a below average defensive team, as a negative defensive team. I don't have many teams in the negative column in terms of the value that they're adding or subtracting to their teams for an individual game. The A's defense literally subtracts from their value in my model. So awful defense, awful team to watch. Their owner is also punitively punishing players for supporting the team wanting to stay in Oakland. The last dive bar movement. Brent Rooker got benched for wearing a wristband. Esturio Ruiz sent down for wearing a wristband. So David Forrest, Mark Kotze, all these guys are complicit. The MLBPA should absolutely get involved because it seems fairly obvious what they're doing. John Fisher can go to hell. But no interest in betting the A's. The team is awful karma, and they look like a Little League team or even a high school team fielding.
How are we feeling about those A's overs bets?
Awful. But you know what? I'd still place it 100 times out of 100 because I was the low man in the market. I had them at 59.5 wins. And I think the next closest projection to me was like 62 or 63 wins. That was just an automatic overplay on the numbers. But no, absolutely awful. I'm glad I didn't put more on it. Glad I also have some Texas Rangers under too with Josh Young getting hurt. The Rangers to miss the playoffs right now, start to think about maybe adding it just because you look at that lineup without Jung in there, it's definitely a lot more shallow than it was previously. I know Adolis Garcia is bulking up to the size of 2 human beings, but he can still only cover 1 position.
5 errors in the first 3 innings last night, Red Sox and A's.
Nolan Jones is also putting on a clinic in left for the Rockies yesterday. The Little League home run, he's got 4 errors. There's definitely an element of like knowing you're on a really bad team and just not really being locked in and caring that plays into this how bad the defenses can get. Or like those bad Mariners teams, the numbers they used to put up defensively are just horrendous. And it kind of feels that way with these A's and Rockies squads right now.
Yeah.
Debundo, how about you? Do you have an underdog for today?
So I bet Cleveland. I put it in the app plus 108. It has moved to, they're like minus 102 now, 105. I mean,
Okay.
Does that count as an underdog? We'll call that the underdog. I think Shane Bieber's got some upside. Fastball velocity way up. He regripped his breaking ball slider and found it again. And he even joked about it after his last start. Like it was kind of embarrassing because he had forgotten, like he was gripping it wrong, trying to get more torque on the ball. And he was a guy who, we remember him in 2020, 2021, pre-sticky stuff crackdown where he was putting up these godlike numbers. And then he started to lose fastball velocity and he really declined. I mean, last year his strikeout rate was 20%. Then he was out with an injury. But he looks rejuvenated. He looks better. Luis Castillo, we faded him last week on opening day and he was not good. And it's been a long going trend for him to start slow. And I still think there's value in it. I think right now he's clearly the 3rd best pitcher on that staff. And that may change by June, but right now I think Castillo's overvalued. I think Bieber could have some upside. His strikeout props all the way up at 6.5. So the market's catching on there. But in terms of pitching really well, he's always had the plus command. He's got 2 great breaking balls, and now the fastball's back. Like there's a lot of upside for Bieber to beat what he's done the last 2 years by a lot.
Where is Castillo's at 5.5? That went down a full strikeout from opening day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, a lot of that is the lineup.
Yeah, Guardians
facing Cleveland. Yeah, I bet his under as well. I should say that. Following the trend. Under. Yes, under 5.5, even money. Cleveland. We've got early enough data now to look at whiff rates, chase rates, strikeout rates, and once again, Cleveland top 3 in the league in swing and miss rate, lowest. They just don't swing and miss. Washington was bottom 2 last year. They're swinging and missing a lot more now. It's not just Joey Gallo. Interesting. They're not maybe as sticky year to year, but Cleveland, it's a skill they clearly target, and it's something that they prioritize, and it's just very tough to strike them out.
Yeah, it's their identity as a team.
Okay, Debundo might have another strikeout prop for us. Also a dinger play for Tuesday. Dinger Tuesday. Sean Zerillo, you already echoed Debundo on the Yankees and Diamondbacks over. What else you might have for today?
So the A's Red Sox over, betting that again at 8. Not all due to the A's defense, but I think their bullpen and defense should continue to just give free runs to the other team. The Marlins and Angels over. This is one that we discussed yesterday. I said if the Marlins use their key relievers, I liked it yesterday, and I was going to like it again today. Well, Anthony Bender, Andrew Nardi, Sixto Sanchez, George Soriano, and Tanner Scott have all pitched 3 of the past 5 days. 4 of them have gone 2 in 3 days. They have no bullpen left. Jesus Luzardo could absolutely keep this under by himself, but if Luzardo only gets through 5 or 6 innings, the Marlins literally have nobody behind him who hasn't worked multiple times recently. So Angels have a few tired relievers too, but the over 8, 8.5 minus 120, over 9 to minus 102, both of those fine to me. I guess the Cubs under would be my contrarian play. The Cubs over would be my contrarian play of the day. Big time under cash yesterday. Very easy there. Bit of a crosswind today. It's not blowing straight in. It's blowing across the third base line to the first base line and even a little bit out to right field. So very strong winds. We have Action Lab systems that measure when and weather direction, that tell us Wrigley Field under, Wrigley Field overs. This one doesn't hit for either of them. This is actually kind of a neutral wind in terms of influencing the flight of the ball. So I like the total closer to 8.5 in this matchup. Would bet the 8 to -102. I also like the Cubs in the first 5 innings up to about -166. I know Kyler Freeland's velocity was up in spring, but did not look particularly good in his first start, was just throwing the same junk but harder. The Astros first 5 in the under for me. Framber Valdez, advanced metrics, projections for 2024, all about a half run better than Jose Barrios. I'm talking about metrics over the past 3 or 4 seasons. I would think on paper these two are probably closer together. I would think in my mind that these two are probably closer together than they actually are on paper. And Barrios, throughout his career has prone pretty drastic home run splits. I know he's fixed it in recent seasons. 377 at home, 453 expected FIP on the road throughout his career. So always don't mind targeting against Jose Barrios when he's on the road. But more so, this just comes down to an advantage I see for Framber, who was awful in his first start against the Yankees. Hopefully command a little bit better today. And that, I believe, is that for me in terms of my sides and totals for Tuesday. So don't know how many more I'm going to add, but I don't really see many underdogs on the board that I'm interested in playing, and nothing really popped in terms of value. I like Anthony getting in on the Guardians early. I think that's probably the right side, but I make that line about -103, so no value on me for it. No value on Bieber for me at that point, but major on Anthony on some of these strikeout total overs and unders. Gallen under, Castillo under, Mize over. I agree with all those so far.
Okay. Something to watch, too, with the Cubs. We didn't mention this yesterday. Justin Steele going to the IL with the hamstring strain, how that impacts the rest of their rotation. Can they overcome? It seems that it's had a domino effect on the rest of their starters here in the early going.
Yeah, the Cubs have some arms in the minors, and they have some prospects in the minors, too, who they could potentially flip. But they brought up Ben Brown. He got hammered in relief. They'll probably bring up Jordan Wicks at some point. So, they have guys. Too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Wicks got hammered too.
Did he? Yeah, I actually missed that one. So they have pieces that they like in terms of upside. I know both of them got hit early, but they also have pieces that they could go out and trade for arms. And I don't think the Cubs are done improving this roster. They're still, in my mind, they're the team who's going to end up winning the NL Central. And they also have the most pieces that they can kind of consolidate and flip for what they need. So,
yeah, Wicks threw 4 innings and gave up. He wasn't terrible, but just a lot of walks. Yeah, Brown is the guy. If you're a stuff plus guy, Ben Brown at this point,
yeah.
The stuff is electric. Can he throw a strike? More debatable.
Also a Long Island kid, so always going to pull for him.
There you go. DeBundo, you've got one more strikeout prop you want to give out? It's actually in that first game, Minnesota and Milwaukee. Going to Minnesota's pitcher.
Yeah, Louis Varland, under 5.5, -150. I think I agree with Sean's analysis that Varland could pitch well here. He's probably only going 5 innings, and his strikeout rates don't project out to be particularly elite. He's somebody who I think if he can limit the homers, is going to be an effective pitcher in the back end of the rotation this year. I like Louis Varland, but the stuff plus has not been as great when he's been a starter compared to when he's been a reliever. So, we saw him touching crazy high velocities, but his stuff plus in spring training was 98. His projected K rate was 21%. If you just do all that math, he has to go 24-ish hitters to get there. And I just don't really see that many hitters for Louis today. So I'm going to go under 5.5, lay the juice, like a lot of unders today for strikeout props.
Okay. And finally, the grand finale, Dinger Tuesday. Who are we eyeing today for Dinger Tuesday, DeBundo?
Well, we talked about Zach Gallen, and we're fading him in the strikeout market. We're fading him in the totals market. Why not we pick a Yankee to homer? Juan Soto is plus 470. Guy's locked in right now, has the raw power. It's just about lifting the ball enough for him, and I think the ball's really flying well in Arizona. So I'll take the over. I'll take Juan Soto to homer, plus 470.
Okay.
I was curious to see if Soto was going to start swinging more this season. His swing rate is up 8%. Relative to last year, but it is all, I believe, in the zone. It's all zone contact. So in terms of chasing pitches that he thinks he could drive, but normally pitches he wouldn't swing at. I saw him offer it a couple, and he actually doubled against the Astros a couple times on pitches that were balls. But his O swing is the same as it has been in recent seasons. So just getting more strikes to hit so far, I think. Maybe they stop pitching Soto as aggressively. tough to tell in a new league. So, pitchers adjusting to him. But was curious just if Soto had this revamped plate approach with the Yankees this year, at home, going to be swinging for the fences a little bit more with that short porch in right field. Maybe he hasn't played a home game yet, so maybe he changes his approach at home. But so far, pretty similar approach, just getting more pitches to hit in the strike zone.
9 for his first 20, has homered once so far this season, 3 strikeouts and 20 at-bats for Juan Soto in the early part of the season. All right, gents, very good. We are back here on Friday for Best Bets, and we'll go through the Friday slate. Don't forget to find Zerillo and DeBundo in the Action Network app. Sean Zerillo pens the opening pitch article in the Action app Monday through Thursday, so keep an eye out there these next couple of days. If you want to find more baseball, we won't have the podcast again until Friday. And DeBundo adds anything else strikeout-wise, be on the lookout there as well. We're back here Friday for more Best Bets. This is Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. For Sean Zerillo, Anthony DeBundo, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll talk to you again at the end of the week.